morning. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Wendy of The Widow's Gift, and welcome to the channel. Welcome back if you're coming back. I went to see a movie this last week with a friend that I have met down here in South Carolina. She and I went to go see this movie called Eleanor the Great. I had seen the previews for it a while back and forgot about it. And then another friend and I had been texting, and I said that I went to see the movie The Senior, and she said, "Oh, I want to see Eleanor the Great." And I was like, "Oh." And so I looked that up and I thought, yeah, I wanted to see that. So anyway, I reached out to this friend of mine and said, "Hey, do you want to go see this matinee? I can go Tuesday if you can go." And so we went. It was a very different movie than what I expected it to be, but it was very good. And it was about a 94-year-old lady. And I won't go into details, but if you can see it, go see it. The reason I'm bringing it up on Widow's Gift is because ultimately the movie was about grief. And yeah, so but you really didn't pick up on that fact until the end, really. But one of the lines in the movie, which is one of my favorite things to do in movies, is pick out like one or two of the nuggets. I love to find the line that usually says the title of the movie. And then I also love to find like the gems, that speak to me in the movie. And one of the lines that I loved in this particular movie said, "You've got to talk about the things that make you sad." And it's so true. It's so true. And sometimes I feel like I do that to a default because I am a verbal processor and I like to talk through things. And sometimes I will talk something until I can't talk about it anymore because I'm trying to process it. And so I don't know where you are in your journey with grief, specifically with widowhood grief. But, as I've mentioned, there's been so much more grief as far as the grief of losing dear people in my life that's happened since becoming a widow. So, we've mentioned before, it's hard because life doesn't stop. Like, you want to take a pause, and you really can take a pause, but the rest of the world keeps going. And so that's where you're at. You're left trying to figure out what your life is going to look like moving forward, and also how you're processing all the other grief that's going to continue. And, it is very good. Just like that line in the movie, you've got to talk about what makes you sad. And certainly there are things that make you sad in life. And losing people that you love when they pass on from this life to the next, it's just a lot sometimes. I'm still really reeling with the loss of my friend because I'll just go to think, oh, I'm going to send this to her, and then you're reminded quickly. And I think that's just how grief is too. It's it's been a little over 4 years for the loss of Bob, and the other day I came across his business card. It was stuck in a book, and it was just like, oh, it's just little things that will hit you out of nowhere and bring you to tears. I was shopping the other day and found, there was just a Christmas mug, and it was like the best dad ever or something like that. And again, that brought tears because we're coming up on this season, and you just miss those people dearly. Just miss them. While we celebrate what was, the love, all the fun memories, the good and the bad, the laughter, the tears, it just leaves these holes in your heart for them. But you know what, friends, we have hope. And I don't know if you're a believer. I hope you are. If you're not, and you would like help, to become one, just admit you're a sinner and that you need a Savior, and start your walk with Jesus Christ. You'll be so glad you did. I don't know how people make it in life without that, without Him, without the peace that passes all understanding. I wanted to read just a little bit of Revelation 21 today. I'm going to start at chapter 21, verse 3. And I heard a thunderous voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's tabernacle is with human beings. And from now on, He will be tabernacle with them as their God." He will tabernacle with them as their God. Now God Himself will have His home with them. God with them will be their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes and eliminate death entirely. No one will mourn or weep any longer. The pain of wounds will no longer exist, for the old order has ceased. I'm going to stop there. That was just 3 and 4. And, my friend had that scripture. She had Revelation 21:4 on her little card that we received at her services. And can you imagine in heaven, no more crying? I mean, that is huge. That's huge. Because if you are someone who has been going through grief, whatever it is you're grieving, you could be grieving the loss of good health. You could be grieving the loss of a job. You could be grieving death of loved ones. Grief is giant, and it encompasses quite an array of areas of our lives. So, but we have that hope that one day we're going to be somewhere. I don't know what it's like there. But that's hope. That is hope that we will see our loved ones again, and that they're at a better place than earth, which that was a little hard to grapple with in the beginning too, when Bob first passed, because I was just like, well, how would that be better than with us? But truly, that was me looking through my lens, right? But I wanted to also share, we've got a little time. Remember those grief books? They're little pamphlets. So this is A Time to Grieve, and this is Kenneth C. Haugk, if you want to look it up. And there are 4 little booklets. And I've read from them before. Some myths of grief came from one of them. But I wanted to see, this one is If God Seems Far Away. I don't know where you are with your faith since the death of your loved one. Grief affects our relationship with God too, sometimes in ways we never expected. Some people find that they draw closer to God during grief than they've ever been before. One grieving man told me, "My faith was the only thing that made sense in a time when nothing else did. God's presence was the one thing I could count on. It's the only way I was able to get through this terribly dark time." But I've also seen the opposite. People who had been pillars of faith were so devastated by the death of a loved one that it shook them to their foundations. One woman who had lost 3 loved ones in a car accident said, "What have I done wrong? How could God let this happen? Their deaths torn apart everything I've ever believed." I've been in both places at various times, and a lot of places in between. There's so much I don't know, but I have come to know and believe a few things with all my heart. Whether God seems near or far or somewhere in between right now, I share these thoughts in the hope that they may be of some help and comfort to you. The first thing I know is that it's crucial for us to be ourselves with God. For example, pretending not to be angry at God when we really are doesn't fool God or help ourselves. So whether you're angry or at peace, whether you feel God close or that God has abandoned you, Admit it, say it, feel it. That's where you are. That's real. Always be real with God. It's the way God can be real with you. So see, you got to talk about those things that make you sad. And that starts with talking about those things to God. Tell God what you truly feel. If you want to ask God some difficult questions, ask them. If you have serious doubts about what God is doing or even whether God exists, go ahead and express your doubts. Don't worry that God may get angry at you. God never turns away from people who open their hearts and speak honestly. If you doubt that, just read a few of the Psalms. The writers of these poems, prayers, and songs said exactly what they felt. And if they did, so can you. Don't mistake feeling abandoned by God for being abandoned by God. Great men and women of faith have felt abandoned by God at times, yet everyone else saw that God was alive in them. Mother Teresa, who worked among the poorest of the poor in Calcutta, wrote in her journal, I feel just that terrible pain of loss, of God not wanting me, of God not being God, of God not really existing. These words were written by a woman who had devoted her whole life to serving God. The greatest example is Jesus, who, as he was dying on the cross, cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me? So if you also feel that terrible pain of loss, you're in very good company, God's company. Finally, in some mysterious way, God grieves and suffers with you. I say mysterious because I can't explain how it works. God's ways are not our ways. Yet God has entered our lives in his son Jesus, and Jesus was all about helping those who suffer. Jesus cared deeply for people whose hearts were broken by sorrow. When you cry, Jesus cries. Your tears are his tears, your pain his pain. This is a total mystery to me, but I believe it. God doesn't take away our pain, but shares it. That's the way God's love works. That's why every person who truly deeply shares the pain of your grief with you is doing God's work. The woman whose faith was devastated after she had lost the 3 loved ones later told me, it took a long time, but I began to see that God really was there. He was just very different from the God I had pictured before. He was more real, more comforting, and I discovered he had been with me all along. Before the accident, after the accident, today and always. See, remember, friends, God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He doesn't change. He's right there with you. All you have to do is turn to him and tell him those things that are making you sad. Talk about them. That's my gift for you today.